Richard, my good friend. What defines a good friend? It is someone you can trust, who shows unequivocal loyalty, and will lend an ear when the occasion to chat occurs. The friend will offer assistance to others when a need is expressed. My friend, Richard Furness, was a special man who showed these qualities. When I first met Richard, Gail and I were organized the local Duplicate Bridge Club. He would show up for a game with a chap who went by the name of Dr. Bill. I thought they were best friends, as they would come together time after time. Turned out Bill had no way of getting to the games, and Richard would drive several miles south of town, both picking up Bill and taking him home afterwards. He was doing this out of the goodness of his heart. I realized I would be proud to have such a considerate man as my friend. He and I connected, and our lives became quite involved. Since we were of the same age, Richard and I shared many similar life stories. I learned of his interesting media-related jobs which took place over the years. This included ownership of a newspaper in Greenwood, BC. I was president of the local hospital foundation at the time and was fortunate to have him offer his work experience to oversee and edit our media and advertising program. I'll never forget the first foundation meeting Richard attended in the hospital's lower boardroom. As chairman, I had started the meeting and carried out the usual business part of the evening. Richard was sitting to my right, which I had requested in order for me to introduce him. I started my spiel and told the group about his abilities and how lucky we were to have him offer to lend assistance to our cause. I had not been watching him, as I was speaking to the directors in front of me. I finished my introduction, and when I turned to have him speak, I found him slumped in his seat. In a state of what appeared to be unconsciousness, I thought he had suffered a stroke. I ran to the phone and called emergency and told them to send help to the boardroom. They arrived, loaded him onto a gurney, and headed for the emergency room. I called his wife Joyce and said I would be on my way to get her. I sped to their home, hoping I would get her back to the hospital in time. When I got to the house, I was more in panic than she. Turned out Richard was type 1 diabetic, and this was not an unusual occurrence. On occasion, he was known to not watch his blood sugar levels and would run into trouble. In later years, I had seen him act a little out of character and would say, "How is the blood sugar?" Then he would take the required action. This turned out to be my invitation into dealing with diabetes. Over the ensuing years, Richard was a great asset to the foundation. Gail and I spent many hours with Richard and Joyce, including a month in Puerto Vallarta and a visit with us at our California rental home. We enjoyed his stories, his humor, his thoughtfulness over the years. While in Mexico, Richard had the occasion to obtain some dental work. He was able to locate a female dentist who agreed to look after him. He was quite impressed with her, leaving early in the day and returning in time for our joint dinner. The dental work seemed to go on for many visits, which led to our thoughts of how many teeth he was having repaired. Turns out our thoughtful friend was teaching her English. I loved teasing him about his newly found girlfriend, the humor of which Joyce quite enjoyed. Richard felt he was quite the handyman. He was never backward in taking on a project, some of which did not turn out as he had hoped, but he got full marks for his attempts. One of my last memories occurred when he requested my assistance to help him install a new laminate floor in their dining room. We were both on the floor, crawling around on our knees, busy cutting and fitting laminate. When it was time to get the next pieces of flooring, we were attempting to get to our feet. To anyone watching, it must have looked like two beached whales endeavoring to get free. Thank goodness there was a door jamb on which we could pull ourselves up. Once upright, we could not help but break into fits of laughter. Richard loved playing bridge and is remembered as a kind partner. Winning was always the goal, but if he could take a successful flyer, which none of the other players in the room had attempted, he considered his game a success. He was a loyal member of the Powell River Hospital Foundation, the Duplicate Bridge Club, and the Third Crossing Society. I remember him as being kind to all. I do not recall anything other than positive words about his fellow man. My friend contacted terminal cancer. After much thought of his options, he decided to choose medical assistance in dying. We visited him often. On the evening before his chosen event, Gail and I joined the family in the hospital room. We chatted about life's memorable happenings. He was at peace with his choice. Richard was busy choosing music he loved and wanted to enjoy the next day. We said our goodbyes and left for home. I wish he was here now, as I'm sure he would love to edit my tribute to him. His presence is truly missed. Richard Frederick Furness passed November 11th, 2021. I have a little poem that goes beside this. The miracle of friendship. There's a miracle called friendship that dwells within the heart, and you don't know how it happens or when it gets its start, but the happiness it brings you always gives a special lift, and you realize that your friendship is life's most precious gift. Author is unknown.